Fear and anger can be healthy. They can get us to do the right things, but stress is one of the biggest problems that we face. The economy affects so many things. A lot of people think it's just about money and the rich getting richer, but without that economic stability, it starts to really tear you down inside, mentally. I look at the people of London as the infrastructure of London. It's a 91% service economy here in London, and maybe even in the city you live in, which means the people are only as healthy as their minds, and the people are the infrastructure of the city. I just don't see the politicians talking about this. I don't see them offering solutions. The economy is the backbone of what goes on in society. London wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the economy. That's why people came together originally to trade. We hate sitting at home. It makes us sad, it makes us depressed. We love being connected, we love doing things for other people, we love being of service. And that's what we all need to be as humans. So let's give us the chance to do that. Let's give people the tools, let's give them the break in the business rates, let's remove all the regulation and red tape, and let's really get out there and get London back to work, and let's also make London great again.
One, two, three, listen.
Welcome to Real Deal, Real Deal, Real Deal, Real Deal, Real Deal. Joining me today are the happy pair. Welcome to Real Deal. Welcome to Real Deal. I am Brian Rose, and we are live here at London Real Studios to talk about something that's really important. And today, I really want to talk about how the economic recession is causing mental health issues here in London and actually all around the world. And this is something I want to talk very seriously about today because I want to try to find solutions. And I really welcome your input and help. We know that this has been an issue through the lockdown, the pandemic, and the recession. But when I've been out there in the field, I've really found out how serious this issue is. And as I've gone into the data, which I want to share with you today, it's even more serious than I thought it was. And it's quite shocking, some of the numbers out there going right now with people that are considering suicide, people that are feeling anxious, feeling lonely, feeling stressed, and how it's really hurting our physical and mental well-being. So I want to talk about that today. But first, I want to hear from you. So there's all sorts of different platforms that people are watching this show on, but I want you to type into the chat right now and tell me, what is the single biggest economic challenge you are facing right now? Also, I want you to answer a question. Since the pandemic, have you felt a significant increase in stress levels, anxiety, loneliness, or hopelessness? And finally, how do you think we can solve these problems? Is it leadership that we need? What are the real issues? So please type in the chat right now. I'd really love to hear from you so we can try to find these problems and solve them together. You know, I'm going to talk about London because I can only control what's in front of me. But I want you to tell me what's happening in your city because I want the best ideas to surface so we can all use them. That's been the theme of London Real for the past 9 years. People say, Brian, why do you have this person on or this person on? Why do you agree with this person? It's not about me agreeing with people. It's a marketplace of ideas that we create here at London Real so we can choose the best idea. Best ideas always float to the top if we can have an open and honest debate, and the best ideas have marked the upward surge of human civilization throughout history. So let's get these ideas out there and choose the best ones so we can move forward. And look, this is the second part of a series that I'm doing on how I can help make London great again, to get out there and find out what can we really do on the ground. And I'm literally going out and speaking to people in the field. I had 2 incredible conversations yesterday with entrepreneurs and business leaders here in London, and I want to share with you those conversations. I've got some video coming shortly, and I'm going to be having more conversations with community leaders, health professionals, our first responders, anybody I can talk to, people in the culture and in the arts, in tourism, anyone I can talk to offer solutions to the problem that's not only happening here in London, but it's happening around the world. And unfortunately, I think our leadership is failing us. I think we get duplicitous responses from our government, and sometimes it seems to be politics, and they're not really concentrating on good policy that's going to help us get to the next level. So that's what I want to talk about today. You know, before I get started, a lot of people say, Brian, what's with the funny accent? What's an American doing in London, and why do you love this city? Well, I love London. What can I say? I was actually training in the gym yesterday. It was leg day. And one of the trainers came up to me and said, "Hey, where are you from? I heard you talking and you sound a little different." And I said, "Well, I'm from San Diego, California." He says, "What are you doing in London?" I said, "This is the greatest city in the world." He said, "What are you talking about? You're from the beach, the sun, the surf, Baywatch." And I said, "No, this is the greatest city in the world." I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "London." And I was trying to convince him how this is such a great place. And I've lived here over 20 years. And for me, this city resonated with me. I love the history. I love the culture. I love the people. I love the fighting spirit. You know, the people that fought back in the Blitz of 1940 when everything looked hopeless. Everything looked lost. It looked like only a matter of time before Germany would invade and crush this entire great civilization, and yet the people fought back. I love everything about this city, and that's why I named my show after this city. That was a conscious effort. London Real was because of this great city. My children were born in this city. I have citizenship in this country, and it's something I've always loved coming home to, and this is home. People say, "How often do you go back to the States?" Rarely, actually. This is the place I call home. And so it pains me and frustrates me when I go out there and I see boarded up businesses, when I hear people suffering from their mental health, when I watch political leaders make ridiculous decisions, when there's no science-based decision-making when it comes to how to deal with COVID in our lives, our businesses, even our education. I'm taking my children to school. Every single day I walk my son Caden to school, and I'm watching what happens. I'm seeing the people out there, and it pains me to see this city struggling economically more than any other city in Europe. It really is. And so I want to offer solutions. That's the thing. Don't bring me a problem, bring me a solution. That's what I tell my team here all the time. And so today I want to bring you some ideas for some solutions. I'm not one that complains. I'm one that wants to offer a better concept. So that's what I want to talk about today. And I want to talk about, of course, why I love London as well. And I want to move to, my next slide. And that is me going out and talking to real people out there on the ground. And so the first person that I went and spoke to was Simon Woodward. And this is Simon. And funny enough, he invited me to speak with him yesterday. And of course, he just happens to live on a houseboat in Chelsea on the Thames River here in London. So I know it's a hard job I had, but I got to go out and speak with this man. He's an incredible guy. He received an OBE from the Queen in 2006 for services to the country. And Simon, for 30 years, was in the entertainment business. Then he created a restaurant chain called Yo Sushi, where at the time, no one had ever seen anything like that in London. He put sushi on conveyor belts that went around the restaurant. You could take what you want. Robots would serve you drinks. And it was really out there. It required a lot of innovation, a lot of risk-taking, a lot of real British spirit. And he made a massive success out of that. He later went on to become one of the first dragons on Dragon's Den and quiz entrepreneurs and push them hard about their business models. And I got to sit down with him yesterday, and I asked him quite frankly, I said, "Simon, what do you see are the problems we face here, and what are some of the solutions to get London back to work?" Because I really feel that the economy solves so many problems. It gets people back on track, it gets them busy, it gets them generating an income, it provides certainty. And so I went out and asked him some really hard questions, and I want to share with you some of the responses that he gave to me. So here's a short video clip of me going out and speaking with Simon Woodward yesterday. So it's Brian Rose from London Real. I am on this beautiful houseboat in Chelsea Harbor with Simon Woodward, who is an entrepreneur who's pretty much been there and done that. 30 years in the entertainment business. He also was the founder of Yo Sushi, an iconic British brand, one of the first dragons on Dragon's Den, and now he's taken that Yo brand into hospitality all around the world. And I'm super excited to sit down with him today and maybe answer some questions that have been burning inside me lately, which is, how do we get London back to work? Tell me about fear. This country has seen moments of real darkness and come together, the Blitz in 1940, for example. And I remember when this started happening in March, I had a young team and I said, look, I've seen things like this before. I've seen economic crashes. I remember the AIDS scare when I was in New York City, and I said, you know, you're going to feel all this fear, but if you breathe through it, it's never going to be as bad as you think it is. But a lot of people have processed fear really maybe poorly or in a difficult way with all this COVID. How would you give advice to how to deal with the fear and the unknown? Because it's not dissimilar to business.
Well, look, here we are sitting in a serious business conversation and we're talking about fear. I mean, the world has changed, and absolutely right. I mean, fear is one of the most common human emotions that we all suffer all of the time. And actually, it's very useful. A bit like anger can be very useful as well. It gets you up and gets you off your bum and gets you doing things. Yeah. Stress is not so good because it sort of debilitates you and stops you doing things. So, you know, there's a balance. But I think, you know, we're going through a period where we're learning, and I think it'll be taught in schools eventually, how to deal with these emotions that we get as human beings, as opposed to just learning about history and geography and math, you know, and we will get much better and more rounded human beings ready to and work together. But I think, you know, I've seen during this whole pandemic crisis a bit of a wartime spirit, a sense of us being in it together. And I hope that will, as I'd say, go through to government so that we'll get better politicians in time.
And I really enjoyed my time with Simon. You can see he really is quite a character. And we're going to be publishing the entire conversation, of course, on our website and on YouTube as well. But what really stood out for me is what Simon said. He said, fear and anger can be healthy. They can get us to do the right things, but stress is one of the biggest problems that we face. And he's seen a lot of that in the community, a lot of that with entrepreneurs, a lot of that with people being laid off and people with furlough and people not knowing their economic future. And it was really interesting to hear that point of view from him and how he thought that stress factor was one of the worst things that can happen and one of the most damaging pieces when it comes to what's happening in this lockdown and when it comes to any kind of economic downturn. So it got me thinking. And, you know, my next meeting in the day was with Peter Durr Smith. And so I moved on now to a man who's really on the ground in retail, who runs a coffee chain called Caffeine with a K. And he's been doing business for 11 years. And I sat down with Peter Durr Smith and I wanted to, again, listen, like, what are some of the issues you're facing? And one of the things that Peter did early on was he lobbied the council to put outdoor seating so he could keep his business going. He was barely hanging on by a thread, but he found that the government wasn't responding, and it wasn't until he went on Instagram and he even had to walk down the street and beg the BBC to do a feature about him. You know you're desperate when you ask the BBC for help. And then finally, the council came and actually helped him. But it was only because he made up a big mess and a big stink. And every person that sits outside means that one of his employees might be able to get paid, which keeps them in the game, which keeps the local economy going. And so I listened to Peter about all the issues that were on his mind. And I want to play for you the time that I spent with him and some of the issues that he brought up about struggling as a business, trying to get London back to work, and trying to deal with a lot of the red tape and the stresses and the problems that he had as an entrepreneur. So I want to play this short video for you of the second entrepreneur I went out in the field and saw. This is Peter Durr Smith, and this is someone who's encountering many of the problems we're seeing out there with small businesses around the world. And these are some of his thoughts and some of his frustrations. Hey, it's Brian Rose from London Real. I am here with Peter Durr Smith at Caffeine, his establishment, one of two coffee bars that you own.
Yeah.
This man was in the hospitality industry for over 30 years, originally from Melbourne, Australia.
Correct.
And been really impressed with how you've got your business back and running since June you put in outdoor seating, and you're trying to find ways to do business in this new COVID reality. Just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the challenges you face as an entrepreneur and how you've been able to get back to business.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.